Hi, I'm Johnson Oroyemi, and welcome to QS Online class. Today we are going to be looking at cost analysis and developers budgets, and we are going to be building up. It's going to be a continuation on of our previous classes, especially on cost planning that we've been looking into for the in our previous classes. And someone might ask why cost analysis, and cost analysis is very much more important because if you look at some of the things we've actually dealt with in our method of preparing preliminary estimates, we've actually dealt much more with how to arrive at our quantity in carrying out cost planning of a construction project rather than the rate that we are going to use alongside with those quantity to arrive at our proposed budget estimate. So that's why we'll be going into cost analysis today, because the cost information that we are going to be using to prepare to carry out a cost plan to carry out cost planning of a proposed project is not only going to be based on quantity, but also we are definitely going to have rates. Taking for instance now, if we are talking about if we are using functional units of preparing or functional unit method of preparing preliminary estimates, we are going to have units. I mean, a functional unit maybe in terms of bed space of for a for hospital projects, or in terms of car park space for a car park project. But we are not going to stop at that. That might get that with that we arrive at the quantity, but at the same time, we are also going to be using rates. I mean, like cost per unit. And if we are using superficial method of preparing preliminary estimates, we are going to after we've gotten our the quantity in square meter, we are definitely going to be multiplying that with cost per square meter. So these are the things we are going to be looking at, how we can actually some of the things we need to consider for effective usage of cost analysis. Then from there, we are going to move to application of our knowledge on cost plan. So because after we have a proper understanding of cost analysis and how to actually some of the things we need to look into for effective usage of cost analysis, then we can apply our knowledge we can apply our knowledge on the cost analysis and some of the things we've learned in the previous class in actually preparing a cost plan. Then from there, we move to developers budgets, and after that, we conclude and summarize. Now, like I've said, cost analysis is very much more is so much more important because the cost information we are going to be using is for a in carrying out the cost planning of a project is actually going to be from previous projects, and that cost information is gotten from analysis of the cost of previous projects. So meaning that if the analysis of cost of previous projects is not done, then it is impossible. We won't have a basis for the cost of a new or future project. So the process of analyzing and recording the cost data of a project is now what we know as a cost analysis. The process of analyzing and recording the cost data of projects is what is known as cost analysis. Cost analysis is the record of how cost has been distributed over the elements of a building. It includes a brief description of the overall nature of the project and specification notes on the general level of finishing. And it is worthy that we note that in carrying out cost analysis for a project, we need to include brief description of the overall nature of the project and as well as specification on the general level of finishings, so that this will help us to actually, when we are making use of the cost information from the cost analysis, to actually have a grasp of some of the things that we need to consider for a new project. You know, when you have the understanding of the overall nature of the previous project, where you get those cost information, and you'll be able to actually look at what are the differences between the previous project and the new project, and you'll be able to carry out proper adjustments before you can use that cost information for the new project. Then another thing we need to note here is the fact that cost analysis could be done once tender information has been received or after the final account has been agreed upon. It can be done when the tender information has been received and where after the final account has been agreed upon, but it is recommended by RICS in no rule of measurement 1 that we make use of cost analysis based on the agreed tender price and not on the final contract sum. And the reason for this is because it might take time to prepare the final account sum before the final account sum is agreed on. So we might not have the luxury of time for that. Maybe we have to carry out a cost planning of a particular project, of a new project. So it is advisable to go for cost analysis from our tender analysis and reporting. Then the second reason why we should use the cost analysis once the tender information of cost analysis from our tender analysis and reporting is, according to RICS, is because it is much more difficult to analyze both the original contract sum and variation accounts than to analyze the original contract sum alone. That is, if we are waiting till after the final account sum has been agreed upon, then the work of analyzing the cost of a project will be cumbersome because it is much more difficult to analyze both the original contract sum and the variation accounts that has happened in the process of executing a construction project. Now, when we talk about the purpose of cost analysis, the purpose of cost analysis, like I've said, is to, without cost analysis, we wouldn't have a basis in carrying out cost planning for a new project. So the purpose of cost analysis is to provide data that allow comparison to be made between the cost of achieving various building function in a project with those of achieving equivalent function in other projects. It is the analysis of the cost of a building in terms of its elements. So basically, the purpose of cost analysis is actually to provide comparison for between various elements of a building project based on the cost information we have from the previous projects. Now, there are considerations for effective usage of cost analysis, that is, the cost information we have from previous projects. Before you can actually use those cost information for a new project, there are things we need to consider. There are adjustments you need to make, and those adjustments are categorized into 3. We have adjustments in price level. The previous project is actually, the tender information, the tender analysis was done at a particular time in past, and also even the project itself was completed at a particular point in time past. So, but here we are carrying out cost planning for a new project. So you need to there's a need for adjustments in difference in price level, because the cost of taking, for instance, the cost of material for a project, for a construction project, when the previous project was actually carried out, it might have changed. I mean, there might have been an increase or decrease in the cost of those materials for at the point in time where in we are carrying out a cost plan, we are carrying out cost planning for a new project. So there's a need for adjustments on difference in price level. Then also there's a need for adjustment on difference in quantity, which which we've taken care of in our previous class on method of preparing preliminary estimate. So we've taken care of that. Then also the third adjustment is on quality, on level of finishes and level of services. So measure of changes in price level can be in terms of location, and it can be in terms of building cost. That is, maybe there is a difference in there is an increase in the prices of materials for a construction project. So then it can also be in terms of tender price, and this talks about when the economy is boom and when we have recession. You know, when the economy is boom, um, tender price will definitely go up because contractors have more projects at hand. So tender price definitely will go higher. So, but if we are in recession, so definitely the tender price is going to be lower. So method of changes can be in terms of any of the three: location, building cost, and tender price. Now these changes in price level are performed using what we call index number. An index number are a means of expressing data relative to a base year. What this means is that, taking for instance now, in the case of a building cost index, a selection of building material is identified, the building materials is identified, recorded, and given the index number 100. That is, if we have a cost information, cost analysis of a particular project carried out in time past, when we are going to record, if we pick some building materials and we are going to record that, we are going to give it index number 100. So that's what is called a base year. So index number is a means of expressing data relative to a base year. Now, assuming the cost of material included in the base index is 500 naira in May 2019, that is last year, every 3 months the costs are recorded for exactly the same materials, and any increase or decrease in cost is reflected in the index as follows. Now, if last year the cost of materials for a particular project is 500 naira, and the cost for the same material May 2020 this year is there has been an increase of 20, it has increased by 20%. Then the building cost index will be 120. And what this means is that it represents an increase of 20% in the cost of the selected materials. So, and this information can be used if, for example, data from a 2019 cost analysis was being used as the basis for calculating cost for an estimate in 2020. So you see that, okay, the building cost index for the project carried out in May 2019 will be 100, while that of why the building cost index, if you are carrying out a project in the month of May 2020 this year, so, and there has been an increase of 20%, the price of materials has increased by 20%. So the building cost index for the month of May this year will be 120, and we are definitely going to see how this is applicable. Let me show us how this is applicable. So here we see we have an illustration of how the building cost index is actually applied, although it's quite different from what we have here. For this one, the building cost index for May 2019, that is for the existing structure, is 100, which is a base year, a building cost for a base year, and the building cost index for May 2020 is 120, which shows an increase of 20% in the cost of the selected materials. So, but here it's excuse me, here it's a different. We have a different building cost index, but it's just for an illustration anyway. Um, let's look at the question. This is actually the question where we are going to use for our application of knowledge on cost plan, but we are coming back into it in details. But just for the sake of illustration, we'll be using this. So we have here your firm of quantity surveyor is currently preparing a cost plan for a building using the architect's sketch and design criteria provided hereunder. So the design criteria: proposed building is 30-meter long and 22-meter wide with a total height of 9 meters, which is three-story building. Sorry, this story here is supposed to have a three-story building. Building cost index for the existing structure is 185, and the projected index at date of tender for the new structure is 215. So let's leave all this one, because it's just for the sake of illustration of what I'm explaining, or explain what I've spoken about on building cost index and the application. So let's go down here where it is applied. So you could see here that for each element we have cost per square meter. Here, this is the total cost. We have cost per square meter. This is the gross floor area, which is 1,300. So if you divide the total cost by 1,300, we have cost per meter square of gross floor area for each element. Now, but if you move down here where we adjust for difference in tender price level, you could see here that this is the cost of the existing projects, but we want to adjust for the difference in tender price level, because now the building, we are carrying out a cost plan for a new project, which have a different date for tender. So how do we go about this? We said this is our cost for the existing project, the cost per square meter, and so we multiply it by we say 215, which is the index for the projected cost index of the date of tender for the new project. So it's 215. Then we divide it by the building cost index of the existing project, which is 185. So what we get here, we multiply it by cost per square meter of the existing structure in order for us to actually update this cost. And what do we have there? We have an increase figure, which is 1,448.08 kobo. So, and this is how how index is applicable in actually to adjust for difference in price level for a construction project. Now let's go back to our presentation here. So another way in going about adjustment of price level of a cost information from previous project is actually the way it is stated by in NRM 1. So, and the equation for calculating its updated unit rates is therefore RA2 equals to RA1 plus RA1 times P. Here we are making use of percentage addition for inflation. The assumption here is that there is looking at the time difference between when the existing project is actually carried out, is executed, and also the current time, the time wherein the present time that we are carrying out cost planning for a new project, that there is definitely going to be an inflation in the cost of material. So the assumption here is that inflation is expressed in percentage. So what we do then is that we multiply that percentage. We multiply it by our unit rate at base date of cost data, and that is the unit rate of the previous project that we are using the cost information. Whatsoever we get there, we add it to the unit rate at base date of cost data. Then addition of the two will give us unit rate at the current estimate base, that is the unit rate for the current projects, that the cost planning that we are doing for the new project. So that's how to go about it. Look, using NRM1. Actually, if you consider the previous slide, we are definitely going to arrive at the same answer with what we have here in NRM1, but it's just a way of expressing. This is just a way of going about it in another way. Anyway, so the question now is that how do we come about this percentage addition for inflation? Because in some cases, in a situation whereby we don't have this percentage addition available, taking for instance now, issue of statistic and data, cost information for especially, or let me put it this way, index for construction projects is not something that is popular here in Nigeria, but it can be done in-house. So you can have an index from done in-house, maybe by a particular company based on the projects they've carried out in time past. So if you have such, you can use this formula in actually arriving at your percentage addition for inflation. And if you are using a percentage addition, if you are using published indices, you can as well use this same equation. And what's the equation? It says P, that is the percentage addition for inflation, equals index 2. Index 2 is indexed at current estimate base date. That is the index we are using for the project the new project we want to carry out the cost planning of for. So index 2 minus index 1 divided, whatsoever we get there, we divide it by index 1, will give us our percentage addition for inflation. Then we are going to multiply that by RA1, which is unit rate and base date of cost data, and we add it to RA1, and then with that we can get our updated unit rate. I hope you get that. Now, but we have a note here as written in NRM that care should be taken not to update previous rates that were based on percentage addition. What that means is that before you can use a cost analysis of previous projects, we should make sure that that cost analysis, that percentage addition for main contractors preliminaries, main contractors overhead, profit and project design team fee is excluded before we use that kind of cost information. And the reason is that if we use that kind of cost information without excluding all this percentage addition from that cost information, we are going to be allowing for all this for the main contractors preliminaries, main contractors overhead, profits, project design team fee, more than what we should allow for. It is written that such items will be systematically updated when a percentage addition is applied to the updated unit rate, another rate. Now, we are given a particular scenario here. A cost analysis is to be prepared on a building project where tender return date is 7th December 2012 and the original contract sum, that is the agreed tender price. Like I've said that we are to use, it is recommended that we use the tender analysis based on the agreed tender price and not on final account sum. So the original contract sum is 13,600,900. So then possession of site, that is, and commencement date of contract period is 11th of February 2013. That is, you could see the difference between tender return date and when the possession of or when the project actually commenced. Then contract period, that is the construction period, is 30 months, and date for completion is 6th of August 2015. Tender price index (TPI) to be stated in the cost analysis will be that of December 2012, because we are making use of tender analysis based on the agreed tender price. So we are definitely, because the tender price index, the index we are going to be using will be that of December 2020. I hope you are getting that of December 2020, that is the fourth quarter of 2020. Like I said, that the difference in cost of construction project is recorded in 3 months interval. So it's either you use index as December 2012 or fourth quarter of 2012, which we are still referring to the same thing. So we have this scenario here. So based on the above scenario, the original contract sum and the rates and prices within we include an allowance by main contractor for construction inflation. Let me quickly explain something here. When a contractor is carrying out, is pricing a bill for a particular project, aside, is going to allow for two type of inflation. Number one is that is going to apply what is known as tender inflation. Tender inflation simply means that you are allowing for an increase in the cost of material or an increase in the cost of inputs of a construction project from the date of preparation of the price bill of quantity, or let me put it, from the date you are carrying out bidding up rates for that particular project to be used in your bill of quantity for that particular project, and the date the tender will be returned. So that's what we call tender inflation. Then the contractor at the same time is going to allow for what we also call another type of inflation, which is known as construction inflation. Construction inflation is an allowance to cover risk of inflation during the period from the tender return date to the date for completion. That is inflation in the during the execution of that particular project. So based on the scenario above, the point here is that if the cost analysis we are using for the new project, if you don't remove the percentage addition for the construction inflation, then when you update using cost index, you update that kind of cost analysis, you are going to be allowing excessively for percentage addition for all this construction inflation and items such as main contractors preliminaries, profits and overhead, project management fee. You are going to be allowing unnecessarily, excessively for this for this item. So it is advisable that you remove the percentage addition for all these items. Main contractors, preliminaries, profit and overhead, project management, and design fee. You remove the percentage addition for these items. You remove it from your cost analysis before you apply your cost index. I hope we get that clearly. So there are other considerations with justifiable reasons. If you check, we recommend that you check in details in NRM1, because we can't cover everything here, but I think the basic thing which is very, very important, which are the fundamentals is what I've been able to explain here now. So let's go a bit further. Now, haven't discussed on how we can update our cost information under cost analysis, then I believe with our knowledge also of method of preparing preliminary estimates, which, like I said while we started this class today, that most of what we learnt in this method of preparing preliminary estimates in our previous class, we've actually dealt much more with how to arrive at the quantity. So then we can go ahead in actually applying our knowledge to a practical project. So we have a question here from I'll be using a question from a professional qualification exam from the Nigerian Institute of Quantity Surveyor. So we'll be using that as a form of application of what we've learned so far on cost planning and cost analysis. So going by our knowledge of how to prepare preliminary estimate, method of preparing preliminary estimates, and also with what we've learned today on cost analysis. So we want to apply that our knowledge in preparing a cost plan for a particular project, and I think this should be interesting to you. So we have a question here from which I extracted, and I believe since it's a question from a professional qualification exam, so it's something that is applicable in the real world out there. So, and I've looked into it, something that we can actually use for this class. So the question says that your firm of quantity surveyors is currently preparing a cost plan for a building using the architect sketch and design criteria provided hereunder. So we have the design criteria. The proposed building is 30-meter long and 22-meter wide with a total height of 9 meters. That is, it's a 3-story building. And the building cost index for the existing structure is 185. The projected index at the date of tender for the new structure is 215. That is, let's assume that this project is we are carrying out the cost plan now, because even that's exactly what the question is talking about. So we have the index for the date of tender to be 215. So then we have we are given here the details about the preview or about the existing structure. The external wall is 225 block wall. So like I said, while we were actually looking into cost analysis, I said something that your cost information, or let me say cost analysis, must be accompanied with specification. That is, it must have there must be a specification on the level of finishing, and also regarding the overview of the nature of the project. So external wall of this existing project is 225 block wall, and the roof is concrete roof. The staircase is reinforced concrete with metal balustrade and hardwood rail straight flights. Then upper floor is reinforced concrete floor. So the gross floor area for the existing structure is 1,300 square meter, and we have the cost information for the structure, for the existing structure, to be external wall is 1,620,000 naira, and we divide this total cost by our gross floor area. It gives us cost per square meter for that particular project, cost per for that particular element for the external wall. The same thing goes for roof, which is a total cost of 1.5 million naira. We divide this amount by 1,300 to arrive at our cost per square meter. Then the same thing goes for staircase. We divide 620,000 naira by our gross floor area, to have 477 naira per square meter. So it goes on like that. Now, It goes further. I said, assume that the contract particular and the geographical location of the existing of the new and existing, excuse me, there's a typographical error here, of the new and existing buildings are the same. Calculate the projected total element cost for the following, stating clearly all assumptions made. Now we are to calculate for the new project a projected total element cost, that is a projected total element cost for external wall, for roof, for staircase, for upper floor, using this cost analysis of the existing or what I could refer to previous projects. So then let's look at how we go about it with our knowledge of cost analysis and building building cost index in particular. Now I've worked out the answer here, so you are just go alongside, follow me, or just go along with me. Gross floor area of the proposed building is 30 of the proposed building. Excuse me. Yeah, gross floor area of the proposed building is 30-meter long and 22-meter wide. So, like I explained to us in our class on method of preparing preliminary estimates, that when you are carrying out your gross floor area under superficial or gross floor area method of preparing preliminary estimates, I told us that when you are calculating for your gross floor area, you less the external wall. So you measure from internal face of the external wall. So that's how you arrive at your gross floor area. You do that for the length of the building and for the breadth of the building. Then you multiply the two together to get your gross floor area for that particular building. So here we have this is external dimension of the proposed building, 30-meter long, 22-meter wide. So we have to less the external wall, which is 225. If we multiply 225 times 2, 225 mm times 2 will give us 450 mm, which a meter is 0.5 meter. So we less that from the from our length and from the breadth of the building, and we have this figure. So we multiply the two together to get our gross floor area for ground floor, which is 636.80 square meter. So, and if you look at here, you will discover that the total height of the proposed building is 9 meter, which is 3 stories. So, so we have 3 floors as a result: the ground floor, the first floor, and the second floor. So, if our ground floor area for our gross floor area for ground floor is 636.80 square meter. So, and ground floor is equal to first floor, and second floor is equal to second floor. Then the total gross floor area will be 636.80 square meter multiplied by 3, which give us a total of 1010.40 square meter as our total gross floor area for the proposed building. Now, having gotten the gross floor area for the proposed building, then what we need to do next is to adjust for difference in tender price level, which is where we now apply what we've learned on cost index and adjustments of price level for as far as application is concerned to cost analysis. Now let's see how this is done out. So for the external wall, you see that the cost per square meter here is 1,246.2 kobo. So that cost per square meter for the external wall, what you did now is that we have 215 for our building cost, for our cost index for the projected for the new structure. The projected index at date of tender for the new structure is 215, and building cost index for the existing structure is 185. So what we do here is to say 215, which is the cost index for the new structure, of at the tender date for new structure 215 divided by that 185 for which is the building cost index for the existing structure. Then whatsoever we have here, we multiply it by cost per square meter of the existing structure to update this cost per square meter of the existing structure and actually get adjust for the difference in tender price level for the new structure. So what we have here is an increased price per square is an increased price per square meter, which is 1,448.08 naira. So that's what we have for the external wall. So the same thing is applicable to roof here. So we have the cost per square meter here, and also we have the projected index at the date of tender for the new structure, which is 215, and also the building cost index for the existing structure, which is 185. So whatsoever we get here, we multiply it by cost per square meter to arrive at the cost per square meter for the new for the roof of the new structure. So we go on that way for the staircase too, and also for the upper floor, and we are able to arrive at the updated rates for the cost plan of the new structure. And the final stage here is that we compute the projected total element cost. So for the external wall, since the gross floor area for the proposed building project, the total gross floor area is 1,910.40 square meter. So what we just do is that we multiply it. That's what I said here, that the total is gross floor area, which is this, multiplied by rate. So the rate is what we've adjusted here. So we multiply the two together to arrive at the projected total element cost, both for the external wall, and this for the roof, this for the staircase, and this for the upper floor. So I hope with this you should be able to prepare a cost plan for a new project using the cost analysis of previous projects, and having giving a consideration as we've discussed in our in some of the things we've looked into under cost analysis. So I believe with this now you should be able to actually prepare a cost plan for a construction project. So that's that on the application of our knowledge on cost plan, and as far as what we've learned today on cost analysis. So let's go back to our presentation, and the next thing here is that we want to actually look at developers budget. Now someone might say, why developers projects? And let me quickly say here that, like preliminary estimate, a developer's budget is prepared at stage B, the feasibility study stage of a project where alternative exists. That is, in a situation whereby we have alternative design, where that exists. In such a situation, there is a need for us to prepare a developer's budget. So what is the purpose of developer's budget? The purpose of the developer's budget is to determine development projects that will yield optimum market value. That's the first purpose. Then the second purpose here is that to know the total estimate of the actual construction cost of the proposed development after you have a good idea of the return. You know, the first one said that the purpose is to determine development project that will yield optimum market value. That is in terms of return. Now, having done that, another purpose of developers project is to actually know the total estimate of the actual construction cost of the proposed development. Then the third purpose here is to establish the fair price of the land. And ultimately to decide whether to invest or not to invest on a particular scheme, on a particular project. So that's why we need to talk about developers budget. So The same way we prepare preliminary estimate at stage B, the feasibility study stage of a project, is the same way where we have alternative we need to prepare our developers budget. Let's go a little bit further. So what are the main features of developers budgets? Because one of the purpose of developers project is to actually see which of the schemes, I mean, the alternative that is available is going to yield optimum market value. So one of the things we are going to be considering in developers budgets is actually return, or what we call income variable, which can be gotten from the selling price or the rent, the annual rent of the proposed project. So one of the major things we look at under developers project is the return or income variable. Then another thing is the investment cost. I'm talking about the return we are going to get on the alternative, on any of the scheme. Another thing is to actually look at the cost, the amount that is going to be expended to the total estimate of the actual construction of the project. So we are also going to be looking at the investment cost variable. And let me say here that this investment cost variable is divided into two, because when we are preparing a developer's budget, we are not only looking at, for you to actually be able to say that a particular scheme is going to bring this kind of value, you must definitely consider the future cost, not only the capital cost of actually constructing that particular project. You must also look at the future cost in terms of the annual cost and the periodic cost of that particular project. So under the investment cost variable, we are not only talking about cost variable, but also we are going to look at the running and the periodic cost. And what are some of the items we have under running and periodic cost? The occupational expenses such as rates, insurance, repairs, service costs, and taxes. Then replacement costs at the end of useful life of the component part of the property. That is, if a particular part of the building worn out, got spoiled or have an issue, so the replacement cost that will have an issue that is beyond repair. So we are going to actually look into in that scenario. What we look into is what we are going to consider is replacement cost. Then another expenses that fall under running and periodic costs is maintenance and operating costs, which is cost of management of completed development, like cost of collection, the agency fee, collection of rates, arrangements of maintenance and the likes of them. So they go on like that. So for the investment cost variable, like I said, we're not only considering the capital cost, but we are also looking at the running and the periodic cost. But it is also important here to note that the starting point, because to avoid just like trying to cram, this is a practical course. What we are talking about here is application, not all just theoretical. So the starting point of each development project varies. Taking for instance, if a client call you that, okay, he wants to invest on a construction development project, if he has gotten his land, there wouldn't be a need to include the cost of land in your developer's budget. Meanwhile, you can have another client that have not gotten nothing like land. So in such a situation, you have to include the cost of land and associated costs in your developer's budget. So it is not something that you just not this about application. It's about understanding. So this time is about understanding what goes into developers budget, and not just trying to cram, or because Like I said, the starting point of each development project varies from client to client, from developer to developers. Now, let's go a little bit forward. So, here I actually extract this question also from a professional qualification, which is a practical question of a professional qualification exam question. And this is a practical question that's, this is a real life scenario. So, and that's why I picked this up, so that we can actually see how developers' budgets is prepared. Now, the question here says, um, before I go forward, when preparing developers budgets, we have different option of preparing developers budgets, and basically two. The first one is preparation of developers budgets using capital cost option. Then the second one is the second option is using annual cost option, annual cost. Now, as we go further, you will understand what each one of them represents, their application, what they mean. So let's look at this question. A site is available at a purchase price of 7.5 million, and it is anticipated that planning permission could be obtained for a factory of I think this is supposed to be small letter. Oh, sorry, so it's a graphical error. So a site is available at a purchase price of 7.5 million, and it is anticipated that planning permission could be obtained for a factory of 7,500 square meter, or an office block of 17,500 square meter. The estimated cost of the factory, including site work, is 18 million, and the comparable cost of the office block is 94.5 million naira. The contract period are assessed at 1 year for the factory. That is, for the factory, we have the contract period is 1 year, and for the office block, 2 years. On completion, the office block is likely to have an annual rental value of 1.4 million. Annual rental, that is, annually, the rental value of the office block is 1.54 million. With the landlord's outgoing, simply means, when I was talking about features of developers budget, I talk about, when I under investment cost variable, I say we are not going to be considering only the total the capital cost, but also the running cost. So the landlord outgoing is a sort of running and periodic cost for repairs and replacement of some major parts of the building. So with the landlord outgoing of 300,000 naira, the normal return on office block in this area is 7%. So the factory is likely to sell, but for the factory is likely to sell for 38 million on completion. The legal agency and advertising costs are likely to be 900,000 naira for the factory, and 4.2 million naira for the office block. Architect and surveyor's fee are 12% of construction costs, and finance is at a specially advantageous interest rate of 9%. So the question here is that determine the form of development likely to profit the developers most. Likely to profit the developers most. Now, we have two schemes here. Like I said, a developers project is actually prepared when we have two alternatives. The client is considering whether to invest his money on a particular scheme, or whether to invest on another scheme. So here we have two schemes. The first one is factory, and the second one is office block. So I say here in our answer that let factory equals scheme A and office block equals scheme B. So for scheme A, which is factory, we have the following information, cost the investment cost variable. So we have the cost of land, meaning that the client has not It's not that he has paid for the land, he has obtained a particular land. So cost of land is there, legal and agency fee is there, we have cost of building including site work, which is 18 million naira, and so on like that. Now, it is stated here that the factory after the completion is to be sold for 38 million naira. For 38 million naira. So that is the investment income. That is after the project has been completed, the factory will be sold for 38 million naira straight away. So that is the income. So as a gross development value, that is the income there here. So then, having gotten the investment income, the next thing is to actually look at the expenditure, the cost, the investment cost variable. Now, like it is stated here, we have cost of land, which is 7.5 million naira. We have legal and agency fee. The legal and agency fee is 900,000 naira, and the cost of building, including site work, that is external work and the likes of them, is 18 million naira. The professional fee, which is 12% of the cost of building, as stated here, is 2,160,000 naira. So adding the whole thing together, sorry, this is supposed to be directly under here. We have a total of 28,560,000 naira. We assume here that the client borrowed this money. Then the cost of finance, except where it is stated that the client didn't borrow the money, and our cost of finance is actually 9% of the total of all the cost variable that we already have up here. So which is 28,560,000 naira. So, and the cost of finance is therefore 2,570,000 naira, and we have a total of 31 million naira and 130,400 naira. Now, to know whether the scheme is profitable or not, your net present value must be positive. If your net present value is positive, then the scheme is profitable. But if not, the scheme is not profitable. So here, how do you arrive at your net present value? You arrive at your net present value by deducting the total expenditure from your gross development value, which is your income in this case. So, and for this scheme, we have our net present value to be positive, which is 6,869,600 naira. So, and which shows that the scheme is positive. So, the same thing that we did there is applicable to the scheme B, but this time around, we are not selling the scheme B, which is office block. We are not selling the office block. This time around, the return is going to be on annual rent. So, as a result, our annual rent is 1.4 million naira, and there is an outgoing, that is the cost of the running cost and the periodic cost, which could be cost of repair, maintenance, and the likes of them. So we are going to less that outgoing from our annual rent to actually get the net income. So the net income here is 1.1 million naira. So what we do next year is to actually multiply our net income by what we call year purchase in perpetuity. Now, this year purchase in perpetuity have taken care of the number of years before the project will be disposed, has taken care of that. And so what happened here is that the annual income as a result has been discounted, because of the depreciation giving consideration, so has been discounted. So, and the discount rate is what we have here as R, which is 7%. And so, which is 7%. Then we have our calculation as such like as this, and we arrive at 15,714,285 naira and 71 kobo. And we have our investment expenditure also as follows. Cost of land is 7.5 million, legacy and agency fee 4,200,000, cost of building and including site work, so 94,500,000, professional fee based on the which is 12% of cost of building, and that's 11,340,000. So the total is 117,540,000 naira, and the cost of finance in this case too and is 9%. But this time around, the contract period is 2 years, so we are going to give consideration to that. And so our cost of finance in this case, so we could see that we have given consideration for the 2 years here, is 21. Our cost of finance is therefore 21,157,200 naira. So we have a total of 138,697,200 naira as our investment cost here. And the NPV here is like I said, GDP minus total expenditure, and here we could see that we have a negative value, which shows that our scheme, the second scheme, which is our office block, is not profitable. So the decision here, the advice here, or let me say the point here, or what we could arrive at with this two alternative, is a factory, which is scheme A, having a positive NPV of 6,869,600 naira, will profit the developer, while office block scheme B having a negative NPV of 122,982,914 naira 29 kobo, will not profit the developer. So we could see here by actually with a developer's budget, we could ascertain whether a particular scheme will profit the developer or not, or even the one that will profit the most. But in this case, we could see that the factory, which is scheme A, is what profit the developer and not scheme B. So now let's go to preparation of developers budget using annual cost option. Here we have a question, and the difference basically between annual cost option and that of capital cost option is because some of the costs here are actually per annum. They have been reduced to annual expenses. So they have been reduced to annual expenses. So that's basically the difference between the preparation of developers budget using capital cost option and annual cost option. So let's look at here. We also have another question, and so the question says a church council is considering two alternative proposals to accommodate an increasing congregation. Two schemes exist. Scheme 1 is extension of the existing building with modification to the old building. So that is they want to extend the existing building with a little bit of modification to the old building. So, and the second scheme, which is scheme 2, is actually demolition and rebuilding a complete new and building a new one on the same site. So we have scheme 1 and 2 here, and the following are the financial implication. For scheme 1, proposed extension including fee is 2 million naira. Repair and modification is 1,600,000. Major repair every 15 years is 800,000 naira, and general maintenance per annum is 250,000 naira. Redecoration every 8 years is 600,000 naira. Air conditioning per annum 300,000 naira. Lighting and clearing per annum 280,000 naira. insurance per annum, so they go on that way. Then also for scheme 2, demolition and sales of the material, after the demolition, sales of some of the materials is 200,000, building and fee is 7 million naira, general maintenance 280,000 naira, the decoration every 10 years is 400,000 naira, air conditioning per annum is 200,000 naira, lighting and clearing per annum is 280,000 naira, insurance per annum is 150,000 naira. Now, let me also come again here before we begin to solve this particular problem. Before we prepare developers budget using annual cost for this two scheme. I want to say this, that this cost that you see here, actually it is not, they are not limited. The investment costs are actually not limited to them. So as many as any cost you think that could come up for a proposed project, according to based on what the client agreed with. So far the developers, the clients agree with that. So it's not just, this is just for a sake of illustration, so you can have more information than this. So I don't want us to cram and just be stereotype in our this is not just a theoretical class, it's for the sake of application. So and we are just using this for a basis anyway. So now, how do we go about this? We are preparing developers budget, in this case using annual cost option. And so in this case, what we do is that, like I said while we are looking at our presentation, that we have two types of costs, the capital cost and the annual and periodic cost. This time around, you could see that other costs here, we could see that some of them are per annum, majority of them are per annum, while some are maybe 8 years, 15 years intervals. But for the proposed extension of the building, including fees and repair and modification, there's no particular years for them, meaning that their capital cost, you are constructing at a go. Their capital costs, they are not just per annum or whatever. So therefore, their capital costs. And when you have a capital cost and the method of preparing developers budgets you are using is annual cost option. So what you use in this case, or let me say this, that where you have some of your investment cost to be per annum, it is advisable that you use annual cost option for your developers budgets. And so in the case of capital cost, what you will do is to reduce the capital cost to annual cost. Since majority of the costs are actually annual cost, what you do is to reduce the capital cost to annual cost, and we see how we can do that here. So for the capital cost, proposed extension, we have two capital costs here, the proposed extension including fees and the repair and modification. So how do we reduce these to the proposed extension, these two costs, to annual cost? So we reduce it to annual cost using 1 naira per annum. So there is what we call annual cost using 1 naira per annum. So 1 naira for 60 years at 15% interest rate. At 15% interest rate. The interest rate here is 15%. I think there is an omission in the typing of the question, is 15%. So, and the formula for 1 naira per annum is 1 plus R. R here represent the interest rates raised to power n. Don't mind me, I couldn't just see how I can make this n raised to power. Like a superscript. So R1 plus R raised to power n minus 1 divided by R multiplied by 1 plus R raised to power n. So then if you actually prorate this, what you are going to get is, if you actually calculate this, 1 plus our 15% is 0.15. So 1 plus 0.15 will give us 1.15 raised to n here stand for number of year. So raised to power 60 minus 1 divided by R here 0.15 into 1 plus 0.15 raised to power 60. So you will arrive at this answer, which is 6 naira 606 naira 6.6651 so naira. So you arrive at this figure. Then you will, what you do as a result of that is that your annual cost therefore will be the total of the proposed extension including fee and repair and accommodation, the total of the two of them, which is 3.6 million naira, as we have here. The total of the 2 million plus 1.6 million give us 3,600,000. You divide it by this, then sorry, this is supposed to be points, it's not comma point. So then you divide it, you divide the 3.6 million naira by this figure to arrive at your annual cost. So we've been able to reduce the capital cost to annual cost, and the same thing is applicable to the other costs that are not actually annual cost. For instance, we have this major repair at every 15 years is not annual cost, is a periodic cost. So we want to bring it to annual cost. We use also the formula present value of 1 naira, which is what I'm actually trying to get here. Present value of 1 naira. So there's an omission here. So present value of 1 naira per annum. So 1 naira for 15 years. This time around is 15 years, not 60 years like we have here. 1 naira for 15 years at 15% interest rate will give us, if you use this formula, will give us 5.8472 naira. So then we use it to divide our 800,000 naira to be spent on major repair every 15 years. Then our annual cost as a result of that, it will be 136,817 naira 62 kobo. So we have that also as our annual cost here. Then general maintenance is per annum. So that one is straightforward, 250,000 naira. Redecoration every 8 years. So we apply the same thing we do here using a present value of 1 naira per annum. So, and in this case, it will be 1 naira for 8 years at 15% interest. So if you calculate it, your annual cost will be, using the same procedure here. So we have our annual cost here to be 133,000 naira 725 naira 50 kobo. So and for the year conditioning is per annum too. So that one is straightforward, 300,000 naira. The lightning and cleaning per annum 280,000 naira. Then insurance per annum 200,000 naira. So we have our total annual cost for scheme 1 to be 1,840,670 naira, then 15 kobo per annum. So the same thing is applicable. So the same procedure here is followed when it comes to scheme 2 too. We have the capital cost, the demolition and sales of material falls under the capital cost. Then since it is not in annual, building and fees also, it falls under the capital cost. So then, it's a one-way thing, not something that is annual. So then we reduce the total to annual cost using present value of 1 naira per annum. So, using present value, there's supposed to be PV here, present value of 1 naira per annum. And so 1 naira for 60 years at 15% interest rate, like we did for the scheme 1 year, we arrive at 6.6651 in naira. Then we use that to divide the capital cost, and we arrive at our annual cost, which is 1,080,253 naira 86 kobo. So the general maintenance per annum 280,000 naira. Then the redecoration, you could see that there's a difference between the cost variables. The cost, the expenditure of scheme 1 and scheme 2, and that's why I've been emphasizing that this is about the application is and not just cramming. Because for instance, now in scheme 1 we have major repair at every 15 years. If scheme 2 there won't be a need based on the design or for scheme 2 to have major repair at every 15 years, so you necessarily don't have to include it. So it depends on the scheme, it depends on the design, it depends on, I mean, on the scheme anyway. So like I said, here we have the decoration every 10 years, we don't have a major repair. So, and also we use the present value of 1 naira per annum, and we arrive at this annual cost too, as we've done in the previous cases. So then air condition per annum too, 200,000 naira, lighting and clearing per annum 180,000 naira, insurance per annum 150,000 naira, and we arrive at 1,969 naira, 169,954 naira 19 kobo as the annual cost. Sorry, I'm supposed to be PA per annum as the annual cost for scheme 2. Now, if you look at the two scheme, the annual cost for scheme 2 is higher than that of scheme 1. So, since annual cost of scheme 1 is lower than that of scheme 2, therefore scheme 1 is more economical and should be adopted. So, that's that on preparation of developers budgets using annual cost option. So so far so good. We've been able to cover cost analysis, consideration for effective usage of cost analysis in terms of adjustments in price level, and adjustment in price level in terms of location, in terms of building costs, and in terms of tender price. And also we've also been able to apply what we learn in cost analysis and consideration of effective usage of cost analysis, as well as what we've learned in our previous class on method of preparing preliminary estimates. We've been able to apply that in preparing cost plan for a proposed project. And lastly, we've been able to actually look at where we have alternative, where client is looking for which of a construction development project scheme he should invest his money on. We've been able to see the place of preparing developers budget, and how developers budget will help in knowing which design, which scheme is much more profitable than the other. So this is where we'll be wrapping it up today, and thank you for joining me today in this edition of QS online class. So see you in the next class. Thank you for joining me in this edition of QS online class. See you in the next class.